When a single neuron fires, it is but an isolated chemical blip. When many fire together, they form a thought. What is the spark that ignites our thoughts? What is the fabric that sews our mental process as we form our perspectives of the world? Join us as we explore this magical process of manifestation and self-transformation. This is Alchemy of Thought. What's going on, everybody? I am your host, Tisha Monet, and we are here at another episode of Alchemy of Thoughts. I am sitting here with Dox Diggla, a.k.a. the Brick City Buddha. He is an artist, a meditation coach, a yoga instructor, a relationship counselor, community activist, and life coach. That boy is popping. Make sure you guys stay locked because we are about to get deep. How do you juggle all of these multiple hats?
That's why I'm appreciative of really being authentic in this journey. Not saying that anybody else isn't, but this was a matter of desperation for me. I always say people learn one of two ways, either inspiration or desperation. And I was desperate enough to really throw myself into this, and I wasn't thinking about I'm gonna have a business, I'm gonna teach thousands of people. None of that was in my head. It was about my survival first and foremost.
Okay.
So being that that's the case, I started to really learn about presence, and I figured out that I was really going my whole life missing my whole life, like a lot of us do.
Like always anticipate
exactly.
something.
So
yeah.
Even when you get something you want, that's why it feels like we don't get anything we want. Even when you get it, you immediately go to, all right, what's next? What's the next one?
That's so true.
Right. So I was able to start to supplant myself in the present moment. And now that I may have 30 things on my jacket that I got to get done, when I leave from here, I got plenty of stuff to do when I get home. But right now, I'm right here with you. That's all that counts in my world. My whole world is this moment. So that's what keeps me in balance and able to kind of just tackle everything I got to get done.
So how does one really work on that though? Staying present, because that's something that you have to practice.
Right.
It can't just happen overnight. So would it be some type of?
Yeah, I could give y'all a technique that may help. Everybody eats, right? Everybody may not meditate, but everybody has to eat. So there's something called yoga of eating.
Okay.
Right, and I always use the analogy when I'm explaining presence to somebody. Somebody may be working a 10, 12-hour job, right? You work your whole shift, the whole day, you fantasizing about the one thing you feel like you can control. When I get off work, I'm gonna get such and such, right? Whatever that is for you. So you get off work, you fight through traffic, you pick it up, you get back home, you get it in front of you, and you take that first bite and it's rocking, and then you immediately go ahead. Or you immediately go ahead, looking for the next thing, for the next desire. So with yoga and eating, it kind of just slows you down. So before you even eat the food, you take a second to just look at it. Textures, the colors, pull all that information
in.
Appreciate it. You smell it. You feel those enzymes starting to spill into your saliva, ready to break down the food. You start to create a symbiotic relationship with the food before it even comes to your taste buds. And that kind of pulls down the propensity to rush to what's next. So y'all could experiment with yoga of eating.
Yeah, that's dope. Yeah. I'm just visualizing that, and that's so much. It seems so much more satisfying as well too.
Absolutely.
All right, that's really dope. So next we're going to get into the free thinker. I really want to dive into a little bit about your background and your childhood. So make sure you guys stay tuned because we are about to get deep. All right, guys, we are back. Dox Diggla, we're about to really get deep. So you know that I really dove into your background. I read your biographies. I still watched your interviews. You was just on News 12 recently. I watched it all. So I found something that was really fascinating. You mentioned growing up, you grew up in a Christian household with both your parents, and you weren't always, because you were such an inquisitive child, that wasn't always receptive. So because of that, do you think that this person that you are right now, presently, do you think that person was always in you innately, or you just kind of grew to this person? Or was it kind of like, I did not see this coming at all?
It's both.
Okay.
Because my life took so many turns from that point of being that little kid in Sunday school. I'm not sure if I talked about it on Channel 12, but my mother was my Sunday school teacher.
Okay.
Right, so we would walk to church. Walk through the hood, walk to church,
Mm-hmm.
And I would get in there and I would ask all these like inquisitive things that she really didn't have an answer for.
Mm.
And at a certain point, like reading the story of Jesus, like it was certain stories that stuck out to me, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I still laugh about it to this day. That story stuck out. But the stories of Jesus, I felt like I was reading about myself.
Mm.
And you can imagine how blasphemous that seems at church in a devout Christian household. But it was just something about it where I felt like a connection beyond what I could be conscious of at 6, 7 years old.
Yes,
I felt like I was reading about me. It still don't even make sense to me to this day. But now being in this capacity, and I'm not saying I'm Jesus. I'm saying that I kind of embody Christ consciousness, which all of us are here to do. And to the Christians that still profess Jesus as your Lord and personal Savior, whatever works for you, do your thing. I'm not here to box anybody in either. But Christ consciousness, even the word Christ comes from Christos meaning the light or the logos, the word. Embodying, like we was talking about before we even start filming, just showing love. We just really here to love on each other in different ways.
To serve one another.
Exactly. So now be at this point and having my stint in the streets where I wasn't caring about loving nobody because I wasn't getting loved in a particular way. So going through all those different phases, selling drugs, all this craziness, to now be at this point and having taken so many twists and turns and still ended up where I saw myself at 6, 7 years old, like, I feel like I'm reading about myself. It's just crazy how life works.
So you actually just touched on some next thing I wanted to ask you about your overall ideology on like spirituality. So what is your, like, if you could just sum it up into a few sentences, what is your overall ideology on spirituality?
One sentence: everything is God.
Everything is God.
This is God right here.
This is God. Okay, so you're going to have to elaborate, because they're going to be out there like degrees.
I'm going to take it away from the perceived spiritual mumbo jumbo. Okay. Right? Even science already cooperates and has for a long time. Same atoms flowing through my body, it's flowing through yours, it's flowing through the green thing, right? It's flowing through everything in this room. Everything in existence is flowing with the same vital force.
Okay.
The same energy. Some people call it chi, some people call it prana. Whatever your name for it is, if it's flowing through everything, and we always talk about, even in Christianity, God is omnipotent, omnipresent, right? If God is everywhere, and the same energy is like a clue that the same force is flowing through everything, then how could God not be everything? And the difficult part about that is when something volatile may happen to you personally or to a group of people, what's going on with racism and oppression and all that stuff, it's like, how could God be in everything? But you start to understand the infinite diversity of how source, I call God source, of how source plays out. So it's not always going to be roses and daffodils. It's not always going to be pain. It's going to be the duality of both. But when you can really understand that God is working through everything, you start to see the sense that those moments you thought, why did I have to go through this? You start to see how much it makes sense and that God is really just flowing through everything.
And why it was probably necessary for whatever reason, for your growth or your personal journey.
I don't get to this point without all those moments. I felt like, why am I going through this? You know what I mean?
Oh, that's dope. So I want to really get into how us as a people, as a race, can really adapt this type of lifestyle. So we're going to get into that when we come back. Make sure you guys stay tuned. Okay, we are back once again, guys. So I really just want to get into this next part of the conversation because I think it's very important. You embody the overall perspective of holistic living and spirituality. How can holistic living save mankind, and more specifically the black man?
I will go back to yoga, right? And I don't mean, and no disrespect to anybody that may see this, right? I got plenty of white, brown, black, everything you could think of, cohorts, companions, people that help me with this. But for a long time, spirituality has kind of been thrust into white ladies at the yoga studio. So when I say yoga, I don't mean white ladies at the yoga studio, no disrespect. I mean the actual precept and lifestyle of yoga. Yoga is a Sanskrit word that means to yoke.
Okay.
And I work with a lot of students in Newark.
Okay.
So to kind of bring it home, I always ask them, everybody made scrambled eggs before, right? Yeah, Dox, we made scrambled eggs. You bust it open, the yolk comes out, you start whipping it up. What is the yolk doing?
It's cooking.
It's pulling everything together,
yes.
right? So the Sanskrit word actually translates to yolk. And when you think about holistic living, a lot of times we'll fancify it. It's trendy now, but it's really just talking about the wholeness of everything. So that technique I was talking about, the yoga of eating, not just running through your meal, actually taking in the wholeness of the energy in front of you, the wholeness of every moment as far as the presence. And as far as with the black man, my spiritual journey like kind of started out when Trayvon Martin went down. And mind you, I've always been aware. My parents made me study black history and all this stuff. I used to like win contests and all of that at church. So I always knew. Like a lot of us, I wasn't doing anything with the information, right? So when Trayvon Martin went down, I had to look at myself like, bro, I'm not really doing anything about this, right? So my activism button kind of got pushed in that moment. So as I started to develop, I realized that my first stint with anything in the community was through activism. I started a nonprofit. Initially it was block by block, but you know how we could be sometimes. We say we're gonna do it, and I had 20 people at the first meeting, all of a sudden it was just me. So I had to kind of remix it, and then we did secure a good base turned into Just Do Something. And we did about a year, different events in the community. It was super successful, but I started to realize to consistently get people to show up for themselves, it had to be a matter of them seeing the wholeness of themselves and not just me, my family, my son good, my daughter good. So I don't really care unless it's somebody got mowed down and it's trendy again. And then in between that, we're not really doing nothing. It got to be a consistent
So how
flow.
do you keep that momentum going though? Like you see, we fall off and on the bandwagon. How do you get that self-motivation?
It was interesting. I had class yesterday, I had a meditation class, and somebody asked me about discipline. Keeping the fire of discipline going. And a lot of times you'll realize that our discipline, our karma, which means action, is attached to a particular result. It's attached to a particular outcome. And we deem that successful. So if that doesn't happen, your motivation to continue to do that thing kind of takes a hit. And then you at the whim of being motivated, not being, you know what I'm saying? When you don't care about the result, like when I first started my classes, I knew I was supposed to do this. I wasn't thinking about, again, hundreds of people showing up, which eventually happened. It was the impulse to do it. I did it. I'm successful.
It was the purpose to do it.
The purpose to do it, right? So you're not reliant on the inspiration and the motivational moments. You just do it regardless. When nobody's looking but you and God, you in that thing. You know what I mean? And that's where the dream of wanting to get our people right, it becomes the reality when it's a moment-to-moment thing.
That's deep. That's tough. That's tough. So after many years of conditioning and programming, how do you suggest one begin to a lifestyle change into holistic living, right? Like you, for example, you grew up in the church, and you grew up in Christianity, and in a sense that's still a form of conditioning and programming. So how did you kind of like reprogram yourself to look at this and from an objective view from?
People ask me that in different ways. They'll say, Dox, how did you get to this point? Because they see the Instagram posts and the littiness of it. But the moments underneath that, right? When they ask me that question, Brick City Buddha. When they ask me that question, I always say the same thing. I got here one thought at a time. And that's something we overlook with spirituality. A lot of times we think it's burning the sage, the rituals, the massages. All of that's beautiful. But this journey for me at this point is really about understanding that mind is its own separate entity. And you are not that. Right?
Okay, explain.
And I put it to you like this.
Okay.
Our identification of ourselves is usually based on two different streams. One of which is thoughts, one of which is experiences. So being at the studio, audience is not here right now, I'm gonna ask you, what are these two streams always doing? And don't overthink it. If you get it wrong, I'm gonna give you the answer.
I feel like they're always moving, and they're always going.
That's correct. Changing is the word I prefer,
changing,
right?
Okay.
But there's something in you that some people call God, source, whatever your name for it is, that's witnessing the changes.
Yes.
That was here witnessing before your energy actually took the form of a fetus in your mother's womb. That energy will still be witnessing what happens after this body gets laid down. That never changes.
Okay.
It's even so deep that when you go to sleep, there's no sensory perception data coming in, right? For experience to happen, but you still have experience in your dreams. And there's still that thing behind your dreams, witnessing the dream happen. For you to come back and say, girl, I had a dream about such and such, right?
Yo, that's crazy.
So what you really think you are is a piece of it, but it's the surface of it. We live in the realm of mental projection, physical reality, but there are all these layers beneath that.
Dimensions, right?
Dimensions, right? When you start to really lock into what you truly are, all these things start to become obvious, and that's what awareness is really about. Yeah.
All right. So next, that was really good. So next, I really want to get deep into like your personal journey, your personal lifestyle. So I have some things that I want to talk to you about.
Juice.
This is about to get into the juice. Taboo is the segment that we're about to get into. So make sure you guys stay tuned. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are back once again. Right now, I really want to get into your personal journey and how you've overcome triumphs and things that doctors didn't even think that you could possibly come through. I know you had some health issues and some years back, so tell us a little bit about that and what you did to overcome that.
Yeah, that's probably the glass slipper that dropped first. 23 years old, I got diagnosed with 17% kidney functionality. Doctors couldn't figure out why. I was like 40 pounds heavier, but I wasn't fat or nothing like that. Like, I was in the gym and all of that. So on the surface, I looked healthy, but I didn't understand none of what I would learn through that process. But 23% 17% kidney functionality at 23, they told me I would never be able to improve that number.
Wow.
And mind you, being that it was no like reason that should be happening to me, I was at UMD&J Popular Hospital in Newark. And I was like the mystery case. So I had like 6-7 different senior doctors trying to crack the code and figure out what I was going through to cause this. As a result, youngest person at the renal center for like 4 or 5 years, at the hospital twice a week. I'm on medication. As a result of the pressure from my kidney, my retina exploded.
Wow.
Right, and I remember the day I was working pharmaceutical transport, the legal kind, right? I wasn't hustling no more at this point. So I'm coming back, it was long days, it was like a 16-hour day. I'm coming back to the base, I'm in traffic on 22, and it just felt like something had flew in my eye. I'm thinking like a fly went in my eye. So I went to wipe and I opened my eye, and it was like 70% shadow. Right, so I got back to the base, I go look in my eyes, like bloodshot red in my eye. Go straight to the emergency room, and they let me know that my retina had exploded and detached from my eye. And I had to figure out through this journey of starting to learn about energy and spirit and starting to eat better, that it was a matter of stress. People don't realize whenever you talk about disease, when you split it apart, lack of ease. So any moment you in anger, you in frustration, you in anxiety, we get comfortable in being in those states. We start to identify ourselves by how much of that we can take. I did that.
Yeah.
I felt strong for being able to hold all this.
We call it being resilient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation about a young lady was saying, I don't want to be a strong black woman. You know what I'm saying? Even though I'm not anyway, but it's like accepting that role, and I started to do my own research. Whenever you're in a stressful moment, cortisol is dumped out into the body, and it sends off signals that you are in a moment of distress. So all these different chemicals spill out, a lot of which is why a lot of black people got renal issues. We in constant fear, right? We such these strong people, but you're scared of getting fired from work. You're scared of getting to work late. You're scared of what's going to happen with your kids, whether the jump out boys or the cops. So I had to realize that the doctors couldn't figure out what was going on physically because this was an energetic situation. And once I started to learn how to dump out the stress on a day-to-day basis, those numbers skyrocketed. 17% went to last time I was at the doctor, 83%.
Wow.
Got off the medication. I can see again. Like, you're still a little bit blurry, but it went from completely pitch black to now I'm able to see. So, yeah.
Wow. And this is all through just the changing of your diet, meditation, yoga, and you were able to literally heal yourself on your own.
Absolutely.
So with that, I know that there's Big Pharma and then this entire medical conglomerate. And in your opinion, why do you feel like holistic practices aren't adapted more into the healing process, even though it's been proven to work?
You're talking about like via Big Pharma, via the...
Yeah, so what you did, you healed yourself. You did it holistically, as you would say. No, but why? Because it's been proven to work. You're not the only person. But you have Big Pharma, right? You have these big medications that are being concocted in these labs for your kidney problems or diabetes or whatever. Why don't you think holistic healing is adapted more to culture and just society?
It's the bottom line, which is that dollar sign, bars, I was off the top. But yeah, like the two biggest money makers for Western civilization, America specifically, is war and Big Pharma. We spend more money on those two things. You could triple everything else we spend money on, it's not even gonna come close. So this is why we are in perpetual war. We make up wars, the war on drugs, war on all this cockamamie stuff or whatever. And then of course, even more so Big Pharma, because you can maintain that more than a war. You gotta convince the people why you wanna go to war. Big Pharma, you keep people sick and you allow them to maintain their sickness long enough for you to squeeze the juice out of their headphones, so to speak. So I remember when I had switched doctors. I had a cool doctor. I had got off lisinopril. And any black person that may be on lisinopril right now, I'm not telling you to get off it, but look into it, because I was also depressed. Part of my journey started with suicide attempt probably 11 years ago at this point. I was on the verge of my second one, but looking back, lisinopril caused depression, especially in black people and melanated beings. Angioedema, the swelling of the glands and things of this nature. I didn't get that, but depression kicked up for me at that time. So Spirit led me to get off the lisinopril. I was off it for a year before he said, you know what, I'm gonna recommend you get off it because your level is great. I'm like, Doc.
You was already off it.
Right, he was cool about it. Sometimes they'll put it in your little thing, you know what I mean? But when I switched doctors and my levels had got even better, I told her my whole story and she still says, you know, you can't trust some of those herbs you're taking. You know that, right? But I'm supposed to trust this medication. I really didn't do nothing, and you see the proof of what it is I'm doing. So I fought back against her. I questioned, you know, her intent in even saying that, and she kind of hit a stalemate. So, you know, I'm just doing my due diligence. But this is what they're trained
because they're
to do.
medically. That's just like to say that they're medically trained. This is what they are told. This is what they see. They've been taught, and they put it back out into the culture, into everyday people. When actually, you can cure so much of your problems with just your diet. Honestly,
the body is a self-healing organism.
Yes,
you just got to learn how to get out of the way of it.
Yes,
so it can kick on what it already knows how to do.
And that was really dope. Very, very insightful. So next, I really want to get into how would you educate a person that is new to meditating? What exercises would you give them?
My faith.
Yes, so we're about to get into that. Make sure you guys stay tuned. Welcome back once again. We are Dox is about to educate me on how he would educate a beginner, a novice to meditating. So what exercises would you give someone that is completely new to meditating? And you know, in our culture, our attention span is really, really short, primarily due to social media. So 15 seconds, you know, that's how long what would you do?
I don't even need 15 seconds. I want to do an experiment with y'all.
Okay.
You can't cheat. I can see you.
Okay.
But y'all at home, I'm going to need you to close your eyes. So y'all can go ahead and close your eyes right now.
Okay.
And when I count you down from 3, I'm going to say a particular word or name. I want you to follow what your mind does when I say this word or name.
Okay.
In 3, 2, Donald Trump. Just watch your mind. You need about 7 seconds to watch what your mind does with Donald Trump. Alright, you Gucci. Come back.
Okay.
What did your mind do?
It immediately went to visualizing him speaking. That's what I saw.
Right, so you had literally a mental projection into the form of a picture. And I usually use triggering characters or people, Donald Trump, Kanye West. And normally when I say, you like the first person? Yeah, Kanye. I love Kanye though, like that's my dude. But normally when I say this, people smile or they start to laugh. I did this yesterday in class. Some people say, yeah, I saw an orange hair. He looked like a character. Whatever it is, right? But you start to realize that, I always say, the average human being thinks between 55 and 75 thoughts per minute.
Okay.
80,000 thoughts per day. And with what you just saw, I threw one thought into the atmosphere. It turned into the tributaries of all the information, preconceived notions that you may have about Donald Trump, and it brought it back to this moment. So before you can even get to the point of meditation, understanding that you have the power to scrutinize, pick and choose what you would like to pay attention to. And when I first work with somebody, I let them know there's going to be 5 to 10 minute intervals. You don't hear a word I say. You're going to be eating your next meal, whatever it is you do up here. When you notice, oh, I'm not here right now, all you got to do is simply what I say, I call it dropping the luggage. You drop the luggage, come back to right now. And if you miss the last 10 minutes of what I said, in this moment you hear, you register what I have to say, and it's going to happen again.
Yeah,
so
and then you just bring yourself back again.
That is the initial meditation, no matter what technique I'm doing with people. It's developing a skill set of just
bringing
coming
your back. And so that's so funny because I actually just did that the other day because I meditated for the first time in a couple months, which is bad because I tried to adapt that into my lifestyle. But I noticed that while I was meditating, I kept drifting off. I was just wanted to make myself present in that moment, but I kept drifting off to things I may have to do that day. But I kept bringing myself back. When I became aware of it, I kept pulling myself back. But I didn't know that in itself is also a practice.
It's like the foundation. I use the analogy of when you're coming back from a vacation, you come to the airport, you come to the conveyor belt, you're looking for your specific luggage. You don't care about none of the rest of the luggage until you see your bag. Social media, we see the ads all day. You know, I'm an artist. You see 10, 20 rappers every 10 minutes. Bruh, I'm not concerned with your mix. Y'all may do it to me, so you know I'm lit, right? But you don't log in.
Yes.
So when you realize whatever can come, whatever needs to come can come. I have the choice of what I'm going to log into.
Yes. Okay. That's amazing. That's really, really dope. I didn't know that itself was a form of meditation. I thought the coming back and then making yourself present was the meditation. So it never actually stops.
Absolutely. I'm always meditating.
Wow. Yeah. And it makes it actually easier for us to adapt that into our lives. It's not as strenuous mentally as we thought it would be.
You don't gotta go find a cave in the Himalayas.
Yes.
You can be doing what you're doing, watching the game, and still staying present when you get pulled away. Don't log in.
Yes, and then you just mentioned with the social media thing that you are an artist. So I actually want to get into that next. I really want to dive into the cover and just the overall artistic expression of your album. So we're definitely going to get into that when we come back. Make sure you guys keep it locked. Welcome back. We are in the final segment of the show. Once again, joining me, Dox Diggla. And with all the many hats that you wear, among those, you are an artist. So I really wanted to get into the artistic expression of your album cover. And then also the title, There Is No Spoon. Can you explain or elaborate on the philosophy behind that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting because I identified for most of my life, 15 years at this point in my life, as an artist. And I've been, lit. I've been lit out here in the streets in different ways. Worked with some of the GOATs of music, the track masters, Nitty, Tone and Pope, the heat makers, had deals on the table, all type of stuff. So I had a whole life, a whole career before I got to the Brick City Buddha thing. So that audience has kind of lost me. And they may not necessarily care about meditation. So when I see them in the streets for the last 4 or 5 years, probably even longer than that, Dox, when is your album coming, bro? But I haven't really been in a musical space until I went on the Sway Show, right? And even in that moment, I wasn't in a musical bag. I wasn't creating, I wasn't listening to music. I hadn't listened to music in a year. I was in silence all the time, meditating all the time. So when I get the call to go on the biggest platform in the world for hip hop, as far as freestyling and all that type of stuff, I didn't consider myself a rapper no more. So I had to become a rapper in 2 days. You know what I'm saying? Tuck a couple verses in my head, and I went up there and did my thing. Y'all can check out that episode. But that opened the world of music back up to me about 4 years ago at this point. So I started to record music again. I was recording what I thought would be this album, but I had never put it together. Meditation took me away. So now to be at this point where most of my audience is meditation, they don't even know I was out here for real, right?
So you really have these two worlds.
Absolutely.
And then does this project bring them together?
Absolutely. Even with the album cover, it's like a metaphor in itself, because Dox comes from paradox. Paradox meaning something that appears as it is not. And then the Greek translation of it is beyond opinion, right? So I'm at the point where this is not supposed to be cool, it's not supposed to be normal or regular. So the front cover, me on the stoop, chest naked, chains on and all of that, I'm kind of bending the spoon, it looks like I'm in the projects. That represents the hood aspect of myself, but even while I was in that environment, there was something in me that was pulling me to a higher level of consciousness. And the back part, I'm in the throw, you know what I'm saying, my eyes is glowing and all that type of stuff, that represents this part of my ascension. And the album itself is actually the journey from that point to kind of where I am now. So people will hear some of the music and it's like, I can't believe you saying some of the stuff you're saying. It's still conscious, but I was still in a little bit of a different frequency at that point. I wouldn't say some of that stuff now in the way I said it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But I thought and I felt it was important to have that face so people could see it's accessible. I came from the dirt. I came from the soil and I was still able to get to this point. You know what I mean? So yeah.
So how are you going forward with, you have Dox Diggla, and then you have Brick City Buddha.
Right.
Going forward, how do you going to create a world for both of these perspectives of you?
It's crazy because when I was doing our most recent retreat, we got 26 acres of land in Pennsylvania. We just started our weekend retreats out there. Our next one is this coming weekend. But as we was kind of quarterbacking the situation, we was on the way to PA. I'm blasting the music. This is before it dropped. And, you know, I'm surrounded by women and what it is I do, right? This is why I had to get, you know, my sexual appetite in control before the level up. Yeah, celibacy and all this other stuff. But we on the ride up, they digging everything. And at a certain point, one of them stopped the music. They was like, yo, I just had a vision of you being on tour. But part of your concert is a whole holistic aspect.
Yo.
So that you got meditation and it's just like.
When I tell you that would be dope.
Like, it's unprecedented.
So that is something that you foresee. That you
absolutely.
And that'll be actually so dope.
Absolutely. And I feel
bringing your two audiences together.
Yep. I feel like it's my job to normalize spirit. I'm from Bristol. I still got my jeans on. I don't know if y'all can see them. I still got my regular sneaks on, right? But it's my job to normalize spirituality because to a certain degree we're so influenced by cool. And black people cool like influences the cool of the entire world. So if it's not in that bag, we don't really care about it. We don't see the benefit of it. And music is a vehicle for me to do that even on a, I don't want to say higher level, but on a more consistent level. Because you can come to my class and then the world smack you in the face and you may forget everything Doc said. But that music is with you. It's digging into your consciousness and things of that nature. So I needed to be able to put this out to kind of match the worlds together.
Yes, and then just to backtrack a little bit, you just recently said that you did a year of celibacy.
Yeah.
So how did that excel you as far as your personal journey? By you taking that moment to just be with yourself, what did that do for you?
I didn't plan it. Right? Who plans celibacy? Right? I was just at the point where I was coming out of my 13-year relationship with my ex, learning energy, starting to become energy bougie, right? So I realized I couldn't continue to go that way, but I couldn't just call something through either. Then I went to a retreat about 3-4 months in, and I kind of got the download that I was commissioned to take a 12-month cycle of celibacy. Because in the ancient times, in mystery schools, what a woman is able to do with your energy in a moon cycle, in a lunar cycle, your period, right? It takes us 12 months of holding our seed to kind of have access to the same energies y'all interact with this is why y'all, it's so volatile during that time. There's so much energy being cultivated. So once I figured that out, I realized I needed to honor that. And I would recommend a book to any of the brothers that's struggling with your sexual appetite. I was too. I was womanizing, didn't care really to a certain degree. But Cultivating Male Sexual Energy by Montauk Chia. I always recommend this book. It's free, right? So you ain't got to dig in your bank account, free PDF. But that book helped me to understand. I give you an excerpt. The average man, it says in the book, the average man will ejaculate 5,000 times in his life. Right? That's the average man, let alone you lick, you smell good, whatever. Triple that, right? Every time you ejaculate, between 200 and 500 million sperm is released. Every single one of those has the atomic structure and energy to help create a life. So that same energy I needed to heal my kidney, heal my vision, work for myself, create I was spilling out everywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So once I started to gather that and redirect it towards myself, these things started to take care of themselves.
And you just started healing yourself.
Absolutely.
Wow. So in a way, would that be considered as sexual transmutation?
Absolutely.
That would be considered that.
Everybody always thinks Kama Sutra and Tantra and all this stuff is just about a higher level of physical sex, even though still spirit. But it's really about understanding everything is sex. This conversation right now, part of my French and all of that, but your thoughts are coming into my consciousness and vice versa. Like, so you start to realize that sex is just two different entities merging into one in a certain way, shape, or form.
And it's not just a physical form.
Absolutely not. So when I realized that my sexual appetite externally had to be developed internally, and the foods I allowed to come into my system, the music I allowed myself to listen to. This is why I started turning off the trap music and all that other stuff. This is when I started to create that level of refinement for my own energy. And the sex I gave to myself, not masturbate, because I ain't masturbate either.
Okay.
I tell
that's actually a really good point.
I tell women, you know, I did 12. I'm like, but you masturbated, right? So it was no ejaculation in any way, shape, or form. But that recalibrated everything for me.
Wow, that's really, really dope. This conversation was very insightful, and I really thank you so much for taking the time to come down and sit with me. Can you please let everybody know where they can reach you, hear your music, where they can reach you, just, if they want to just find out about your journey? So
go get my album right now, right? There is no spoon out right now. You could, all my music, doxdiggla.com, that's DOXDIGGLA.com. You'll see my merch, previous music, my new album. Meditative side, brickcitybuddha.com, right? That's BRICK CITI. My website's got a duality. Buddha, BUDDHA. And then on Instagram, brick_city_Buddha. Facebook, Dox Diggla. I'm not on TikTok and all. I can't keep up, bro. You're just gonna have to hit me on one of those, right? And that's what it is. Oh, that's what's up. Thank you so much again for joining me. This was a great conversation. Not a problem. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. This has been another amazing episode of Alchemy of Thought. I'm your host, Tisha Monet. Once again, joining me, Dox Diggla, a.k.a. the Brick City Buddha. Make sure you guys keep it locked for your next episode. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.